This is the Heroic Voice, where I talk to comic book creators, people I've worked with, other interesting people, about the history of comics, superheroes, and the current state of the comic book industry. I also discuss current and upcoming projects, current events, and any other topics my guests might be interested in talking about. So subscribe and hit the like button. Help me grow this channel and promote indie comic book creators, publishers, and other people affiliated with the comic book industry. Your comments are appreciated. Get to it and leave feedback, good, bad, and otherwise. I am your host, Dennis Maloney, writer, publisher of the Heroic Multiverse, where we spotlight good girls, bad girls, super babes, and superheroics in a classic, kind of golden agey style. Grab some snacks and enjoy. This is the Heroic Voice. Welcome to the Heroic Voice. I'm here on March 15th, the day after Pi Day, with Eddie deAngelini, the owner of collectorscomics.com, a past owner of Heidi Ho Comics in Santa Monica, California. Eddie, it's a pleasure to have you on. Oh, before we get started, because I keep forgetting to do this, I want to encourage people who like this video to like it, share it, right? Send out links and subscribe to this channel. It's the Heroic Voice on YouTube, and we can use all of the eyeballs that we can possibly get. Tell your friends about it, because we're trying to interview a wide variety of people. And this is, in fact, our first shot at having a comic book retailer to talk with. We have not done that before. We've done creators, we've had a distributor, we've had a printer, but now, in fact, we have Eddie deAngelini, who is and will again be a comic book store owner. Eddie,
Yeah,
hello.
well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for pronouncing my last name correctly.
It's pretty obvious. It looks kind of Italian to me.
Yes, but I've gone through my whole life with people mispronouncing it. So it's wonderful and heartwarming to me when someone gets it right the first time without any coaching. Thank you.
Well, I have the same experience, so I know this. No one pronounces my name correctly first try. It's a Frankified Irish name,
Uh,
Maloney. So you know, and it's Maloney, everybody. Okay, Eddie, tell us about collectorscomic.com.
that is my website for my webcomic, which I started. It's been 13 years running. And it is a weekly webcomic that is loosely based on myself, my wife, my comic book collecting, and all the nerdy stuff she puts up with living with me. So it is a Sunday style, newspaper Sunday style, funnies type comic strip for those people who remember the Sunday funnies in the newspaper. And you can find it at collectorscomic.com each week and also on all my socials. And the links to my socials are there on my website. So
And
if you like to laugh
to
and
be
you like
clear, it's
comic books,
collector's comic, not collector's comics.
that is correct. Collectors with an S at the end, comic, no S at the end. Collectors is the name of my comic strip. So it's collectorscomic.com.
All right. I would highly recommend it. I haven't had a chance to read through it, but I glanced at it. It looks good.
Thank you.
And you say it's kind of autobiographical.
Yeah, I tell people that some of the things you read in the comic strips have happened and some haven't, and I leave it up to you to decide which is which.
So you are, in fact, a comic book story creator in addition to having been a comic book store owner.
Yes, I started my comic strip and I created it. I write it, draw it, letter it, color it, self-publish it. I do everything. There is no one else working on it but me, except for the occasional friend in the industry who I'll wrangle in to be my editor once in a while to make sure things are good. But it's all me, and I started that comic strip just on a whim because I wanted to do something creative, and I always liked to draw, and I always loved comics ever since I was little. And I just started doing it 10, excuse me, not 10, 13 years ago. It's already been 13 years running. And besides being a comic book creator, yes, I went on also to become a comic book shop retailer 10 years ago.
Hmm. And I would like to quiz you on that because I've played at comic book retailing once. I talked Chuck Rosansky into, letting me work at the Mile High Comics store out here,
Uh-huh.
so I could kind of learn the ropes, but it didn't last very long. It was frustrating. Um, if you would tell people what your impression is as a retailer of the comic book industry these days, because I would really like to get that perspective. What's going right? What's going wrong? What's your state? What's your analysis of the state of the industry?
My I would describe the industry as I don't know which amusement park that you go to, but whichever ones you go to that have the craziest roller coaster that just does loops and goes all over the place and where you can't even catch your breath, that's comic book retailing. That's what it's like. What it's like right now, well, I will say that for the past year, I've been out of it because while I co-owned Heidi Ho Comics for 10 years, it sadly, unfortunately, the shop closed down in December of 2023.
A lot of comic
And
shops closed down. It happens. I mean, Beach Ball Comics was around for a long time. It's not around
yeah,
anymore.
well, when COVID hit, and I've talked to some other longtime retailers too at that particular time, when COVID hit and we were getting through it, there were some retailers I know that have been in it for quite a while that they just used what was going on at that time as their excuse to
Hmm.
just take their retirement. They were going to do it anyway. Well, I'm just going to do it a couple years early. And for that, I don't fault them. I think, they it was what they were planning for. They just did a little bit earlier, and that's totally fine. There were some shops too that just kind of just shuttered out of the blue because they couldn't unfortunately really recover. Um, I think that for us, for Heidi Ho, we were somewhere in the middle. I had two partners actually. My wife and I owned it with two other partners, one who was a majority partner, and without going into a big long story, basically we just came to a point where we wanted to dissolve the partnership, and that's what we did in December of 2023. And my wife and I actually have been working through parts of 2024, excuse me. We've been working with a business advisor, and we have been planning to reopen a shop in Santa Monica this year. And it's actually the ball is kind of rolling pretty quick on this, so it's going to be coming up pretty soon here, probably by summer of this year. And as far as what I can mention about comic shop retailing, it's funny. The first thing I thought of when you said that you went to work for Chuck for a little bit to kind of get the ropes of what the business is like. That's a good way to do it, and also not a good way to do
Yeah.
it because every single shop is different. It's not like there is some kind of unionized um, comic shop, like a union, where everyone kind of does things the same way, and you can go to one shop, learn, and then just go to another. Every shop is completely different. It is its own animal, and I think learning from one kind of maybe I think the best thing that you can do is work at a shop to learn all the things that you shouldn't be doing,
Yes.
to be honest with you, not the things you should be doing. Because every retailer that I know, except for a small few, unfortunately, they go into it thinking that because I'm a comic book fan, I'm just going to open a comic shop. And the idea is you should be opening a comic shop because you're a business person.
Hmm.
You can learn about comics. You don't even have to know a thing about comics, but you darn well better know about running a business.
This may be a little before your time, but did you know Nick Scotto at all?
Yes, I did. I grew up here in the Southern California area. So Nick's shop, the comic vendor, was one of the shops that I went to when I was a kid.
Ah,
Yeah.
well, I
So,
remember going to Nick when he had his little, hole in the wall in Hawaiian Gardens, to pick up old comics from him.
uh-huh.
And you mentioned you can't cookie cutter comic book retail outlets. Nick tried that. He tried to franchise, he tried to cookie cut
Yeah.
stuff, and it
Yeah.
didn't work. I tried to tell him it wouldn't work, but he wanted to give it a try, and it just did not work. So,
Yeah. Because I think that every area that you open up a shop in is so completely different. And how you run your shop is affected by what area you open it up in and what kind of customer base you have there. Because you
But you
can
know
go,
Santa Monica, right? So that should give you a head start.
oh, yeah, not only that, we are still very close to our old customer base, and they literally are waiting for us to come back. And we still have a lot of we've still maintained a lot of the relationships we have with other businesses, other organizations there. So we kind of have a leg up in that we kind of already know everybody there, and everyone there knows us.
Heidi Ho had been around for a very long time. I remember going there when I was in college back
Since
in the mid,
1977.
yeah, back in the mid 70s, right?
Yeah.
So was I visited the place because it had opened up, right? And Tommy's was nearby, so I figured I'd stop in at the comic book shop. Also, science fiction bookstores were there. A Change of Hobbit
Yes.
was there,
Yeah.
right? What was the one that Harlan had a hand in?
Now, I don't know because unfortunately this is a little bit before my time, and also I didn't grow up in that area. I grew up here in the South Bay area,
Ah,
Torrance, Redondo Beach, that whole area. So I don't know, but I've got a lot of customers or had a lot of customers at Heidi Ho that were older than
Dangerous
me.
Visions.
Okay, yeah. I know the name because I have a lot of customers that were older than me that remembered those times.
Hmm.
And frankly, I'm kind of jealous that they were there in that time because that was a time in Santa Monica where it was much more of a artsy community, much more affordable, and very different from what it is today, where it's all everything is just so commoditized there and everything is so expensive there. And all of those small, interesting, fun little shops like that, unfortunately, have long since been
Long
run out because they can no longer afford to
Yeah.
do business
The
there.
Change of Hobbit closed because they couldn't afford the rent anymore. It was as simple as that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and then you end up having, your standard Starbucks, Hot Topic, Apple Store, and all that stuff, the corporate type shops that can come in and survive there, and all the small, fun, family owned or single owned shops like that, they unfortunately all went away.
Yeah, even the Tommies is gone. The landlord
Yeah,
chased them out in order to put a Starbucks in there. Um,
there you
so,
go. Yeah.
so without getting too much into it, I assume that you have plans to carry things other in addition to comic books. Is that the case?
Yes, and frankly, I've told people over and over that if you are a comic shop, you can't afford to not do that. A comic shop surviving on just comics in this day and age, it doesn't exist. And I have another retailer friend who's very successful. He actually owns three shops, and he branched out and he's done it very successfully. And this is in Utah. But he's also very smart. And he said to me years ago that y you can carry comics, you can appeal to comic customers, but you also have to carry trading cards, games, toys, other things, and appeal to those customers too. You're not just a comic shop anymore. You are now a pop culture shop.
Richard Kyle, who had a shop on Third Street in Long Beach long ago, was a combination comic book and bookstore. Right? He specialized in science fiction books and comics, and it worked for him for a long time until, again, right, the rent just got too high,
Yeah,
and out it went. Um,
yeah. And this is a business especially. It's true for any business, but this business especially, you have to learn to pivot and you do it a lot
mhm.
because the landscape of this business changes so quickly, for the good and the bad. So you have to be ready, you have to see what's coming, and you have to pivot to be able to survive. And like I said, you aren't just a comic shop anymore. You really have to become everything.
What about events? I assume you've got events on tap for your grand opening week or month or whatever.
Absolutely. Part of our business plan that we've worked on, and to sidetrack very quickly, uh, the problem that I see with so many people that own a comic shop is that they are not business people. They don't plan their business. They're not budgeting their business. They're not doing a projection of the first, second, third year and all that stuff to understand how to be successful, let alone just survive. So that's what we've been doing with this business advisor that we've been working with, where we have literally like the spreadsheet in Excel that is just like miles long, that is planning for everything, down the road based on all our older numbers from Heidi Ho. And having events as part of our business model is definitely a must. It's not only outreach to the community to build a bigger customer base, but it's also, like you said, having a big grand opening sale. It's having gaming. We in Heidi Ho, we had a pretty big gaming community for both Magic the Gathering and Pokemon, and we would have events in the shop in the evenings and on the weekends all the time. And they were, I mean, they were big money makers. It became almost half of our monthly income. So why would we not, appeal to those people and grow to be more than a comic shop and have all these events? So definitely events, they are a must.
Do you have a name for it yet, or is that still under wraps?
Yes. We are going to be Santa Monica Comics Company.
That's pretty generic, but I
Well, but
approve.
okay, you're the first that said that. I mean, I don't know how versed you are in uh, underground comics from the 60s and 70s. But if you remember, there was one publishing house that called themselves the San Francisco Comics Company.
Yes. Mhm.
And I just kind of grabbed it from there and thought, oh, that would be a cool name, Santa Monica Comics Company. And we have a logo that is kind of like in the shape of the Santa Monica Pier
Ah,
sign and everything. So um, everyone has loved it so far. I a little taken aback that you said that, but that's totally fine. That is your opinion, and I will
I
not.
didn't realize it was an allusion to underground comics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a sense.
Here's something else to think about. Can you get pictures of Pacific Ocean Park?
Um, Probably. I'm sure they exist.
That was in Santa Monica,
Yes,
not
right.
here. The last episode of The Fugitive was filmed there.
That's correct.
Yeah. It might be a good little history buff. I remember when I was a kid going to POP and feeding the seals and going on those strange rides
Yeah.
that they had. The one that went underwater, right? The ride that went right across the water from
Uh-huh.
inside of the thing. It was a great place, but it was badly run, right?
It was, yes. And it became decrepit by what, like early 70s,
Yeah.
mid
Well,
70s? Yeah.
60s. It closed
Yeah.
down in the 60s.
Okay.
And in fact, it was Mark Evaneer's father who shut it down.
Oh,
He never
really?
found that. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Um, Really quickly to double back on regarding the name, one of the reasons why we liked it so much was because we have about 6 months out of the year in Santa Monica, heavy, heavy tourist dollar
Hmm.
coming into the city, not just from other states, but also from other countries. And the one thing that they always asked us when they would come in the shop is, oh, do you have a shirt or something like that with the shop's name on it or with
Oh,
Santa Monica on it? So, you know what? We have exactly that. And we were going to have a line of shirts with our big logo on it that says Santa Monica Comics Company for all the tourists when they come. And that'll be, just money out just
so what
money
you're
on the
telling
door.
me, there's actually a practical business reason for that particular name.
Partly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you should have led with that.
Oh, well, I apologize. Yeah. But that was kind of like the first thought of like, oh, if we take that name, we're gonna be able to appeal that, to the tourists who come in asking for that, and we'll have a supply of these shirts at all times, and that'll be like a big thing. Yeah.
Stepping back a bit, have you ever contemplated collecting your webcomic into a publication?
Yes. Gosh, I wish I had it right in front of me here. I'm sitting down.
Want to
I
go
don't know.
grab
I
it?
don't. If Sure.
Go ahead.
Oi.
Wait.
All right.
Okay.
We can
Let's
just cut
see.
all that out, right? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So actually, yeah, in the 13 years that I've been doing the strip, I have been collecting it. I tend to, although I've missed a few years here and there, I will collect all of the web comics that I did online into yearly annuals that are usually about 30 or 40 pages. This is one of them here. This is the sixth one. And so if you're a Harvey Pekar fan, you recognize that
Yeah.
it's an homage to the first issue
Mhm.
of
American
American
Splendor.
Splendor. And I'll do that because I'm such a big comic fan. I will always homage something on the front cover, whether it be like the old wacky DC covers from the 60s with the go-go checks on top or old romance comics or old EC horror comics. And so there's 7 annuals that I've released so far. The eighth is what I'm working on this year, along with a single issue one-shot complete story that is a departure from just the weekly web comic strip that is also going to come out later this year. And the first 3 annuals, after gosh, however many years, just a couple years ago, I realized, oh, they are all sold out and I don't have them anymore, but people would try to order them. So I collected the first 3 annuals in a trade paperback, which
That
is
looks
this right
vaguely
here.
familiar.
This is the homage to the cover of, I think it's
Detective
Batman number 9.
Batman #9. That was
Yeah,
the
if I'm
first
remembering the
detective.
numbering correctly.
Uh,
I could be wrong, but I'll double check. But anyway, this
we'll
is
find
not,
out.
this was the variant cover for the trade paperback.
Hmm.
And this is the artwork from a good friend of mine. His name is Jamie Sullivan. He's a cover artist for IDW. He's done covers for G.I. Joe, Transformers, such and such. So he actually did this, and he really kind of modeled it after me and my wife, who are the two main characters, in kind of a more realistic style, and made us into Batman and Robin on the cover.
That's cool.
So, answering to your question, yes, I have contemplated putting my stuff in print, and I've been doing it for the past 10-ish years.
Can people order that from collectorscomic.com?
They can, yeah, they're on my website, collectorscomic.com. There is a shop on there.
Excellent.
There's all the books. There's other projects that I've done. About a year ago, I did a variant cover for Archie Comics. For they do a yearly one-shot Halloween special issue,
Hmm.
and so I did a variant cover on there, but with my characters along with Archie on the cover, which was unique. And they didn't have a problem with it. They just said, "Do you own these characters?" And I said, "Yes, I do own me." And they said, "Fine, have at it."
Oh, that is so cool. All righty. Is there something else here that I haven't touched on that you would really like to talk about, like the convention scene, for example? I assume you're planning to go to shows once your new shop is open. Is that?
Uh, yeah, even though we had Heidi Ho, I mostly did conventions as a creator.
Ah,
I would have a booth or an artist alley for my books, my art, stuff like that. Once in a while, we would do some shows where we would bring a lot of inventory from, yeah, get a booth as the shop and bring a lot of inventory. Excuse me. And it seemed okay. It's just it's a lot easier to do it as a creator because you wheel in your little cart of stuff, set up an artist alley, and it's much easier than bringing literally an entire giant truckload of inventory to a convention.
yeah,
And
I know well that.
yeah, I would consider doing it again, mostly for the outreach and trying to build a customer base. But when you factor in the cost of booths, which are getting just crazy at shows to the point where I don't see how they can make it sustainable, asking so much money for booth prices. And then employees running the booth, it ends up you've spent out so much to make just a little bit more,
Yeah,
and it doesn't
it's
seem worth it.
opportunity cost, and that's been true for a long time. This is not a recent phenomenon.
No,
Back
it's
in
not. It's
back in the
not.
day, you used to be, I've said this before, you could go to San Diego and make back easily the cost of the booth. That hasn't been true in a long time.
I agree. And unfortunately, yeah, San Diego, it got bad pretty quick, but unfortunately, so many of the smaller shows now are also kind of following suit. And this has been going on for not just recently, but the last 5 or 10 years or so, to where the costs of booths and even the costs of artist alleys tables are just getting just to be too much. And I know that lately, the last couple of years or so, doing shows as a creator, it is getting harder and harder just to make my cost back. And it just almost seems kind of not worth it. The last show that I looked into, gosh, I forget which one it was, and maybe I just shouldn't even say
Yeah,
anyway.
don't even say it.
Yeah. Uh, the cost of an artist alley table was $500, and I thought that is just outrageous for a 6 foot table. That's just crazy. Call me nuts, but I think, for charge what you want for booths, but for Artist Alley at shows, I honestly think a table should not be more than $100.
Well, there's something that the convention promoters aren't considering is, if they price people out that people want to come and see, they're not going to have as many people coming to see. Um, there's a happy medium in there somewhere, right? Because
I don't know because even though shows keep raising the prices, for instance, for Artist Alley tables, and a lot of creators I know are just opting out, they are still filling up these tables. So there are people that are still willing to pay that,
yeah, charge what the market
unfortunately.
will bear, and it's a general principle. But I
Yeah.
think there's a long-term issue here that you put your finger on. It's you know,
There are some creators like myself who might be someone's next favorite indie creator that they want to follow, but they won't find them because we are no longer able to sustain the cost of the tables that what they're charging. And it's crazy. I mean, artists are not rich people, so I don't know why you would think you can charge up to $500 for an Artist Alley table.
because there are some artists who will pay for it. It's as simple as that. But
Exactly.
you mentioned events. You can certainly, help out with that just by having, local comic book creators over to your shop, you know,
Yeah,
on a
and
regular
we've
basis.
done that. We've done that so many times in the past where we have had kind of like mini conventions in and
Mhm.
around the shop where we've had, you know, a dozen creators, sometimes even more, and set it up like a Comic Con. And I don't charge anything for those tables. I just want you to come. I want you to sell your stuff, and I want you to bring people to my shop.
You're going to have a gaming room, right? You can have tables in there, right?
Well, the spot that we have that we are looking at, which we like a lot and we think that we're going to take, is a large enough spot where, and it's all open one big spot. So we're going to have one particular area that's going to be dedicated all times for gaming. But then in the evenings or in the weekends when we have bigger events, obviously tables can take over a larger area of space.
Hmm.
But
I
yeah,
remember when Chuck opened up his mega store in Anaheim. It was a huge facility. He lost it because of the freeway expansion, but there were
uh,
lounging areas. There was, television running constantly. All kinds of back issue stuff. It was actually a very comfortable place to lounge around and experience comic books.
yeah.
It's a shame that it went away, but things go
Well,
away.
we hope to have a little bit of that in our new place as well. Given that it's in Santa Monica, the retail rents there are pretty high, so we can't have a massive amount of space like Chuck has currently, obviously. We're probably going to have a space. It's probably max, probably about 1,500 square feet, but we can do a lot with that
Yeah,
space.
that's a very useful space. Well,
Yeah. And
Eddie,
the space that we are looking at right now, sorry to interrupt, the space we're
go
looking
ahead.
at right now has its own parking lot, which we can get back to doing big parking lot events too.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close for today?
I would
To
just like to tell people, hey, just keep an eye out for Santa Monica Comics Company coming soon this year to Santa Monica, California. And while you're waiting for that, you can always go to my website, collectorscomic.com, and check out my weekly web comics there. And if you like it and it makes you laugh, consider picking up one of my books.
Eddie deAngelini, thank you for being on the Heroic Voice. Do want to encourage people to keep an eye out for Santa Monica Comic Company because it sounds like you've got some great plans coming up. And not only like and subscribe to Heroic Voice, but like and subscribe to your social media stuff.
Please do.
Yeah. So Eddie, have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.